Hey everybody, Damien from StudioProMusica here in the war room, the control room for StudioProMusica, otherwise known as my basement studio. I'm going to talk today a little bit about my guitar rig, my basic guitar rig for the album The Endless Highway, which will be out later this year. In another video I'll talk about some of the software that I use and also actually some of the hardware as well. But for today, the basic guitar rig, of course it starts with the guitar. And for the most part, what you're hearing on the Endless Highway is my Fender Elite Series Stratocaster. You'll notice the 3 single coil pickups. That's my preferred configuration. Also, Martin guitar. I'm a Martin guy. There are other great guitar manufacturers out there, but for me, the low end, the growl that a Martin Dreadnought acoustic offers is just unmatched. So primarily Fender and Martin guitars. On a few songs, you'll hear a couple of others. You'll hear a Fender Strat with the double coil humbucker in the bridge position. You'll hear a G&L ASAT on one particular song. You'll also hear an absolutely beautiful Guild acoustic guitar on one song. Those came to me on loaner, so special thanks to Brian and George and Richard, respectively, for those guitars. But primarily, Fender Elite Series Strat, 3 single coils, Martin Dreadnought acoustic. As far as my amp, I use a Vox AC30. Tube sound is just unmatched. And there's one little trick that I want to show you in terms of how I wire the input. As you know, a Vox AC30 has both a normal channel and a so-called top boost channel. But if we can bring the camera over here, what I actually do, run my guitar into the normal channel and then run a short cable from the normal channel into the top boost channel. So here's my input cable into the normal channel and then output from the normal channel into the top boost channel. It tends to give the best of both worlds, the full and round sound of the normal channel with the added high end of the top boost. Really gives a really great singing quality to the leads, great sustain without adding any distortion. In terms of pedals, I've got my Keeley 4-knob compressor. I'll talk a bit more about this in a minute. My full tone obsessive compulsive drive for overdrive. My full tone super trem, which I keep very nearly in the off position. Very, very little speed, very, very little in the mix in terms of the actual tremolo effect. But just by having it on, it adds just a little tiny bit of warmth that tends to smooth out your sound. For delay and reverb, I do like delay and reverb. I prefer adding it as part of my overall sound, not later in post-production or mixing, whatever. Avalanche Run from Earthquaker Devices. This is an incredibly versatile pedal. You can do a lot with it, some very, very crazy effects. But even just to add just a little bit of delay in the 100 millisecond or so range, just 1 or 2 repeats, and a little bit of reverb at the same time, the key is to be subtle. Unless you're going for extreme, and this pedal can do extreme very, very well, and you hear that on a couple of songs as well, some very unusual effects. That's really it. I do want to talk one moment about the Keeley 4-knob compression. A lot of guitarists, especially rock guitarists, sometimes get frustrated with their sounds. They say, you know, I'm going for a big sound, but every time I turn up the distortion, my sound gets too gritty, too muddy. One thing I've learned over the years is that compression, in a weird way, can kind of replace distortion. I go for a very clean sound. Typically, when I'm playing rhythm, I don't use any distortion at all. If you're going to go to the trouble of voicing and fretting a major 7 sharp 11 chord, you want it to ring through as clearly as possible. So I tend to keep the distortion fairly down. Pretty much nothing on rhythm and really very little on lead. But I get a lot of sustain and a very singing lyrical quality to my high end through compression. And this Keeley 4-knob compression is fantastic in that regard. So if you're looking to add sustain and body to your sound without muddying things up with a lot of distortion, compression can really get it done. And bear in mind, I'm getting that full-bodied sustain with the single coil pickups that a Stratocaster has. So for me, it's the best of all worlds. The clean sparkle of a Strat, no distortion through the amp, very little distortion, if any, from the overdrive pedal, but a lot of sustain and body from the compression pedal. So that's the basic rig rundown. Next time we'll talk about software and hardware, but these are the basic guitars of the Endless Highway, and looking forward to releasing it, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.